All right. Welcome back to the Military Retirement Podcast.
Welcome back,
2026,
everybody.
man. Good to be here, dude.
Happy 2026.
It is a happy 2026, man. So,
Yeah,
John, man, we are joined by a special guest. I'll let you do the intros, man. I'll defer that to you.
No, it's all good. 2026 is my year to jump on LinkedIn as much as I can and interact with posts and interact with people and get the conversations started and going, and then see where they go from there. And a lot of our guests come from LinkedIn. A lot of guests come from secondary introductions through LinkedIn. And then eventually sometime we'll get some live introductions in person, like hot, what do you say, warm handshakes once in a while. But Matthew Benko, I came across a post that he was writing. He had a article he had written, and very insightful guy from what I see. We've just met, just been doing some back and forth interactions, and now we're going to get into his story, dive into it, talk about all things military transition, retirement. Recently retired earlier this year, back in May, I believe, and from a tier 3 retirement. So that's Air National Guard or Army Reserve, Air Force Reserve, those kind of folks who do that usually 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. But in Matt's case, I'm sure it was a lot more effort than that. But we're definitely going to get into that. So just for everybody in the audience, Matt, if you want to introduce yourself, any key points, highlights that we need to hear, definitely not the retirement like pamphlet, but something a little bit more condensed than that.
No, thanks, John. Thanks, Vic. This is a great opportunity just to connect. I know before we went live, we were talking about the importance of camaraderie, but also too with LinkedIn, how to connect like this is a great means to just have these conversations because it's so important. So I appreciate being here and jumping into it and just having good straight up conversation, which I think we need more in this world and in this time of need.
Definitely. Yeah, so let's dive into it. And again, for our audience and our listeners, we like to talk about the transition coming off active duty or coming out of uniform into civilian life. You've actually kind of towed the line on both of those because you've been a Guard member for quite some time, but in that capacity, you were able to also lead a civilian life with a civilian job and do civilian things. So coming from that perspective and being able to see both sides of the rope, I did it myself for quite some time as well as a reservist in the Army, where I was able to do my career professionally as a civilian, and then 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, which ended up being multiple months a year worth of time coming in, doing extra work on the weeks prior to drill or whatever they call it now, BA, whatever they call it. And then also doing extra TDYs and things like that for the organization, because again, they're very skeleton crew during the week. And then the 1 week in the month, everybody comes in, the 200 or 300 people come in and have drill and do all the fun stuff and have barbecues. But it takes a lot of planning to get to that point. But just from your perspective of being able to toe the line between the two, for those folks who may be just active duty, full active duty primarily, getting ready to come off and go into the civilian world, is there any kind of like insights that you have from having that perspective?
I do, and I'm happy to share that. And to add a little more context to that, I started off, my initial entry into the military was a traditional active duty 4-year enlistment. And when I did that for 4 years. I started off in the Air Force, and I was my first job was an aircraft weapons loader. I did that for 4 years, had a break in service for approximately 4 or 5 years. And then that's when I started my Air National Guard career in 2007. And I did that up until recently, May 2025. So I started off in the service. So I had that perspective. And I'll be honest, I didn't know what the National Guard Reserves were when I got off active duty. I kind of wish I did. I wish I'd been more aware, more in tune, because it would have been a nice, smooth. It could have been a nice lateral shift into that. But my break in service actually worked to my advantage and helped me recalibrate and reinforce my decision of why I served in the first place, why I joined, and how important it was for me. With all that said, from 2007 to 2025 was I did for that duration, I was what's called a traditional reservist or Air National Guard member. It absolutely was, though, more than 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year. Because what ended up, when I joined the Air National Guard again, it was with Willow Grove, just north of Philadelphia, and my AFSC, Air Force Specialty Code, and for the rest of the military, MOS, or your rating for the Navy, I went into being an aircraft weapons loader, 2W1. We experienced a BRAC, a base realignment closure, and that was challenging in a lot of different ways because I was just getting right back into my routine. And then a couple years later, I had to find a new home or a new path, new AFSC, do that. I say all that because that put me in a position to explore and cross-train in the Air Force to become a career enlisted aviator, a CEA. So I became a C-130 loadmaster. So for the majority of for the remainder of my career from 2010 until 2025, I was a C-130 loadmaster, career enlisted aviator. I say that because we had to maintain active duty full-time standards I'll use it, just a part-time basis. So you can't do that 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year. It's impossible. I'll say it that boldly. It's impossible. So you supplement it with flight training pay periods. We call them FTPs, TDYs, deployments. So all in all, when it was all said and done, in that period, I did 2 deployments active duty, and then I did 5 major deployments via the Air National Guard, in addition to, I'd say, at least 30 plus TDYs. And TDYs including Ramstein, Germany. I don't count that as a deployment. But yeah, so that's kind of like that's my background. That's where I'm coming from. I did all that, all while trying, meeting myself where I was at and building up a civilian career and managing that piece. And I didn't realize how challenging and how dialed in and how much discipline and awareness that takes. Because you go through a couple motions, you get things right. Sometimes you miss the mark, a variety of different things. And that's what I experienced over the last 15 plus years. And that's what I really like to talk about. That's where my writing, that's how we found each other, John, is my writing and sharing that as a means for me to process, to understand that, and to serve as a resource for somebody else who's going through a similar situation or anticipating that.
Matt, what did you do in your civilian, or what are you doing in your civilian career while you were in the military?
So I started off, I actually just wrote on this today. I with the new year and just really taking it up a notch. I've been meeting myself where I'm at. So I inventoried how my civilian career started while I was really active in managing my military career and just starting off my career enlisted aviator position in 2010. I just finished up grad school. I graduated from Westchester University with a master's degree in counseling with the focus of student affairs and higher education. And then as soon as, well, I say soon, but within a couple months, I should say, within 2 months of me completing my degree, I went off to cross-train as a C-130 loadmaster. Now I'm prior service. I started my training as an E5 staff sergeant in the Air Force. So I didn't have to do the basic training and stuff that comes with before you go to your advanced final training phase. But it still took about a year. I had to stop my civilian career in my tracks and go to this training because it was a choice. It was a decision I made, and it was a very good choice. when I got back, and I got back into a traditional flying role, and I completed my I'll call it my onboard, my seasoning training to become a mission ready load master, to where I can enter that traditional role where it's 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year with FTPs. Then that's when I was able to redirect my energy and focus on a civilian career. And that started off at the VA, Department of Veterans Affairs. My degree allowed me to be hired by the VA, and I was what was called a readjustment counseling therapist. I did that for approximately 5 years, just shy of 5 years. And then I made a shift, and I don't know if it was forced or if it's something I came in a crossroads. I came back from, I'll say it, like a challenging 6-month deployment when it was all said and done, from activation to the time I was released from an active duty status. 6 months, right? Overseas, deployed, Middle East area, right? Coming back, I had a hard time readjusting. And here I was, a readjustment counseling therapist. And I made the decision. It was a tough decision. I left that position for my choice, because I knew it's what I had to do. It's not what I wanted to do, but it's what I had to do. And then that led me into becoming an administrator, school administrator at a variety of different organizations over the years, to include Villanova University, Temple University, Montgomery County Community College, and now currently I work for the Department of the State of Pennsylvania. I'll be Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I've been corrected when I got hired. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for the State Approval Agency, where I'm a veteran education advisor. So it's a big portfolio, but it speaks to the nature of what I had to do to manage a very high maintenance military career, being a career enlisted aviator, while wanting to establish myself professionally in the civilian career. And I think it's something that I've learned over the years. People can't appreciate what they don't understand. And that's not a knock. That's not a criticism of other people. But it's like, if you don't experience, you just don't appreciate it. And that's the challenging part. And that's why I kind of put my story out there, so people could understand it a little better and appreciate it, whether they're experiencing it or they're a part of somebody who has experience, family member, friend, coworker, colleague, you name it.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you, like as a load master, I mean, you had a very technical job. I mean, you were constantly going TAD or TDYs, like you mentioned, right? So what popped up in my mind was when I was active duty, like I had to focus on my active duty job, and that was my life, right? That was my career. I had to go TADY, deploy, or whatever it is. When you are in the position that you're in, you have to not only concentrate on your civilian career and your civilian life, right? This is where the balance comes in. Civilian life, you got to look at your military life, make sure that your certification is still up to date, make sure that you're still completing the training. So it's kind of like how did you find that balance? Did you find that balance difficult? I couldn't imagine. I mean, the only way I could imagine it is because I ran a business while I was active duty. So I kind of had to transition. When I came home, I was in business mode. When I was at work, I was in active duty mode. I imagine for you, you had to think about both things at the same time, kind of balance these things, because you're working your civilian job. Oh, shoot, tomorrow I got to go TDY. I got to transition over. How does that balance look like for you?
I'll say it this way. I'll start off. This is what just comes to mind, is just keeping it real with yourself, being aware, acknowledging. Why do I say acknowledge? Because in the operational checklist world, in the Air Force world, every checklist that we open up operationally on a C-130 starts with acknowledge by all crew members. You acknowledge it. So operational, we are conditioned, trained, you name it, you can't proceed until you acknowledge. Because in the Air Force C-130 operational world, and all operational worlds, if you don't have a crew member who doesn't acknowledge, that means there's something wrong, or they're not aware, they're not dialed in. And it happens. Sometimes you just need to hear it twice to be prompted. Hey, you good back there, load? Yeah. I'm trying to find my comm button, right? acknowledge, let's proceed, after takeoff checklist, combat entry, pre-salute. I mean, I could go on and on with that stuff. So what I did was, I was like, wait, there's something to this. I need to acknowledge this in the civilian capacity. What I call I'm in my post-military MEPS and will be for the rest of my life. Mental, emotional, physical, social, and spiritual. It starts with acknowledging and being aware of where you're at and keeping it real with yourself. I can only speak to how I do that for myself. And I think that, and hopefully that adds some value to somebody else, and like, okay, but really looking and say, hey, this is tough. This is hard. Being vulnerable in an objective way. And what I mean by that is saying, going back to the Air Force operational world, we have what's called CRM, Crew Resource Management. And before we sign in, we personally have to inventory where we're at. If there's some outside factors that could compromise operations, we have to account for that. And we have to keep it real. We have to let the aircraft commander know. We have to let the crew, hey, I'm good to go, generally speaking, but I had a rough night's sleep last night. It was tough at the house or whatever. So there's this awareness piece. It's like, oh, okay, all right, I'm going to keep an extra set of eyes on you. Or you could just say, look, I'm not fit to fly today. So I applied that in my personal life. I'm like, hey, it's easy to do that objectively in an operational state of mind, because that's the expectation. But when you 180 it on yourself personally and take it out of the context and put it in your personal life, I think that's where it starts, and that's where it should and could and it needs to start, so you could build that scaffolding, that foundation. So when things get a little overwhelming or there's an opportunity, most importantly, you could start with yourself, communicate that with yourself, and therefore you could communicate it accordingly and appropriately. And I believe that is a component to that's. I may be, I know that's like generalization. I'm generalizing it to a certain extent, but I'm just painting the foundation of how it worked for me. And as you dial in on that, you make it specific to your circumstances and your situation. And I just like I said, just keeping it real with yourself, being aware and acknowledging where you're at. You have to do that. It starts with that. If it doesn't, you get pulled in so many different directions. And
I love that, dude. I do. And I'm just curious now, since you mentioned it, what happens when you say you're not fit to fly?
It's pretty much taking pause. Like say it could be. It's easier to talk about, especially in the military world. I'm generalizing here, but it's easy. I'll say it as a dude, as a guy, as an aviator and a crew dog. It's like it's easier to, I got a sore throat, or I got a sinus thing going. I got to tap out. There could be more to that, and sometimes there is, and that's fine. It's like, oh, okay, he's not going to be able to clear his ears because we're going above altitude, and he can't Valsalva, right? All right, cool. But if there's the mental, emotional piece, or you're just mentally fatigued, sometimes you got to be a little bit more vulnerable to share that. But so regardless of what circumstances are going on, when you say I'm not fit to fly, and it's like, hey, I'm at a 3 or 4, because what happens then is the aircraft commander inventories everything. External circumstances and internal being like the crew piece. Oh, hold on a sec. Like the risk factors are above a certain threshold. All right, I have to get ops group commander, or I got to inventory. Most important, I got to talk to each crew member to see where that. So that's a longer answer, Vic, to answer your question. It's like you just don't fly that day, and you find somebody to fly for you, and that's how it normally happens, especially on a drill.
Okay, all right.
Or you just find somebody to fly for you, like, hey, man, I'm not feeling. Here's a nice, short, easy. Hey, I'm not feeling it today. I'm off. I need somebody to fly for me.
I wasn't sure if there was something like maybe a fit for duty type of thing. Like, hey, if you're not fit to fly, that means you're not fit for duty. That means that we're going to sit down, we're going to counsel you because you should be fit for duty. I didn't know if there was something that, along those lines, but it's just as simple as finding somebody else to take your place. Is that right?
Yeah,
bad day?
Okay.
if it's say something happened in the last 24 hours, it's a reasonable,
Mhm.
okay, you didn't, but if it becomes habitual and there's a pattern, then that's where the counseling comes in, and that's more of the structure. Like, hey, what's going on here that needs like to do a more of a in-depth analysis, saying, hey, what's going
Right.
on, and
Right.
we could ground somebody. There's a term in the Air Force that we use. It was DNIF, um, duties not to include flying. You go DNF, right? And sometimes that's you break a leg. All right, you're not fit to fly. It's easy to talk about it. Like, hey, I broke my leg. I'm not gonna be able to fly for 90 days or whatever in the cast. But if we're going through
Mhm.
something a little more emotional, mental, there's a hesitation, and rightfully so, to where people
Right.
don't want to share that. But there's ways to.
Yeah.
But if it's consistent and pattern, then we do a more in-depth thing. And the Air Force has gotten better with that over the years.
Yeah.
To
And I would hope that people are comfortable, at least with their team, to come out with that, because that could really hinder the mission and everybody in that aircraft too. If you're fatigued and you can't do your job effectively, you're gonna you risk everything. I mean, there's an operational risk management thing. There's a checklist. I understand that you guys do that. If somebody comes up and they're fatigued, I would hope that, I know that the military is getting a little bit better with this. I would hope that somebody would come out and say, hey, or feel comfortable enough to say, hey, I just can't because of so and so. So, right, you hit it on the head, man. Appreciate that.
No, I'll say this, when we're not real with ourselves, and when we're not useful to ourselves, we can't be useful
Mhm.
to others. We're a
Yeah, absolutely.
liability. We compromise. So that's what I mean by keeping it real and acknowledging, like looking inward and
Mhm.
saying, hey, and I think as we get more professional, older, we triage certain things, what we want to say, what we want to share. But we get better over the years. I like to think, or if we commit ourselves to getting better, we become better at sharing that stuff. And then
Sure.
when we do that, we're more useful to others. We're better crew members. We're better, senior NCOs. We're better airmen. We're just better people across the board because
Absolutely.
we're keeping it real with ourselves. And we're being useful to ourselves, and it applies to all facets of our life. That's just
Yeah.
how I think and feel about it.
Yeah. And I want to kind of circle back on this. You mentioned it as you were speaking, the MEPS process that you're going through right now. I wrote down 4 of them. I didn't catch the last one, but I want to just ask from this perspective of your experience in the Air Guard and just flying planes and doing loadmaster thing, amazing loadmaster things in general. I know that there's a book that I've read once or twice. I'm actually going to revisit it here very soon, and it's called The Checklist Manifesto. It's actually a copy sitting on my desk at work, and I kind of open it up and flip through it whenever I have like a little bit of break or I want to take a break and do something. And in the book, the guy Atul Gawande is the author, and he's a professional physician doctor, and he just kind of came up with this idea. He's like, yeah, in a lot of these high level kind of job environments that we find ourselves in, whether it's flying planes, operating on patients on an operating table, he's like, there's checklists to everything we do, so we know we don't miss a step. And not only just checklists, but we also go over and revise those checklists constantly to make sure that they're up to date, that we're hitting all the key points. If there's anything not useful in that could potentially take away seconds or minutes from us doing the work that we need to do, could mean the difference between, saving somebody's life or they dying on the operating table. And in the case of planes, like not checking the right things at the right time for certain operational pieces of the plane, and then those things go awry as you're flying the plane. So I just want to kind of use that as kind of the context to ask you about the MEPS process, and if have you thought about, or do you have in place like a sort of mini checklists for each of those letters in the acronym, as far as the framework of what that is for you?
I that sounds like a great read. I like that checklist manifesto.
Excellent.
And so my honest answer is yes, and it starts with acknowledge. So if I'm feeling emotional, all right, so I'll drop a little. I don't mean to over reference this. This is by accident, but I'm finishing up Stranger Things, and to me that's emotional. Like I don't mind putting
You mean like
myself out
the
there.
TV show?
What's that?
The TV show Stranger Things?
Oh yeah, like it does something to me. I don't know. I'm still trying to.
It's that 80s vibe, nostalgia kind of thing.
It is.
Demogorgons and all that. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my! And the soundtrack and the music they use is so spot on. I did. Hey, this is a perfect example of why checklists is so important. Hey, where were we? Let's reground ourselves. That's what a checklist does. Well, when we acknowledge it, it helps us get back on track. Because as you mentioned, John, in those, especially in those operations, I'll say, careers, physicians, but I'll speak to aircrew operations. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of when. What I've learned over the years, when emotions get high, our cognitions get low. But that's when our training kicks in, our checklist kicks in, and CRM, we call crew resource management, to just dial ourselves back in and ground ourselves out. And it's so important because whether it's to complete an operational checklist or to deal with an emergency procedure, what I'm really proud of and what I love talking about this, the reason I talk about C-130 Loadmaster is because the tactical stuff we get to do, we do airdrops. And as you can imagine, low level flying, I mean, we're dropping small things anywhere from a 15-pound sandbag on a little glorified, those paratrooper toys, things like it's an old T-10. No, it's not that big, but it's just a small expandable parachute, and it allows us to train for personnel airdrops. But all the way up to, we could drop up to 30+ pound, 42,000 pound dual heavy extraction. So there's a lot that goes into that. And when you're doing that, it's overwhelming. You're dealing with weather. You're dealing with sometimes unseasoned or unproficient crew members who are just learning. Because I'm going to go back to something what we talked about as far as like how do we manage like a dual career and just life in general. Like in the aircrew world, there's one thing I had to do, and what all our crew members do, whether you are a full-time AGR, active guard reserve, or a traditional reservist National Guard person, it was your responsibility to maintain your currencies. Currencies being just, we had to fly at least once every 45 days. That just means wheels up, aircraft takes off. But we also had to do the C-130 world. The reason I say all this is we had to maintain heavy equipment airdrop, CDS airdrop, personnel, JPads, and all sorts of stuff, all sorts of, and my personal favorite was the LCOA, low cost, low altitude, because we're right at the ramp and door. That takes a lot of work to maintain those currencies. And the newer you are as a loadmaster, the more you have to do. You have to get those reps in and all that. So, and it's all checklist oriented. I'm saying all this because when we're doing LCOAs and we got the ramp and door open and you got the drift stream coming in and you got you're not looking at a checklist. It's like, okay, if you are, I worked my way up to evaluator status. I went from mission ready load to instructor to evaluator. So I went through several iterations of being an aircrew. So when there was a younger loadmaster, I would say at this point, you need to know what you need to do, but the checklist is there for reference. Because, when we got ramp and door open and we're calling slowdown checks complete, you can't. You just don't, unless you have a third or fourth arm, you're not able to hold this checklist. It becomes a liability. But at that, prior to the ramp and door, what you're looking is you're checking and referencing and all that. So, yeah, I have a lot to share. So reground me here, like, please, take me back to that question because I'm deviating a little bit. I'm going to get back to what we are. I want our own. How do we make our own life checklist?
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm excited about this because I've been using my gut lately to just kind of navigate through this whole podcast and this whole interviewing world and finding the right guests. And I know sometimes Vic will slap my hand and it'll be like, that's not the right, well, and vice versa sometimes. But I anticipated it was going to be a really good and potentially long conversation, which we're totally cool with. We do that either way, all day, every day. The question I was trying to allude to was, as far as your MEPS framework for what you are experiencing post-military career, in that MEPS framework, do you have specific checklists for each of those letters in the acronym, as far as like, what are your top 2 or 3 things for mental that you need to make sure you take care of? What are your top 2, 3 things for emotional, and so on and so on?
It goes back to that awareness piece and letting yourself acknowledge, hey, I am sensing and feeling this, with the whole, so the P piece, the physical piece, that's easy. If we're not physically feeling well, it's real straightforward. You get rest, you take some medicine, you go see a doctor, depending on the severity of it. It's real easy to have that checklist, right? Physically speaking. What we need to do for the mental, emotional, social, and spiritual part, there's a little bit more to that. And for me, I'll share my experience. What helps me is having these conversations, listening to podcasts, reading, getting out of our comfort zone. And that's where I was going with what I was talking about. Current, there's a difference between managing those currencies in the Air Force world and being proficient. And it's a very important distinction. Because, on paper, oh yeah, so-and-so's current, they proceed to drop the LCOA. But are they proficient? And that's very important. And I believe that's important in the MEPS world too, post-military MEPS world, is we could go through the reps. I was just thinking about this, or this is like my Sunday morning reflection. Reps for repetitions are absolutely important. But if you're not repping the right way, that it ends up working against you in the long term. I saw something somewhere, and I seriously, if I knew the source, I would share it. But what it came down to was iterations. I'm like, I never really stopped to think about what iterations are. Iterations are an adjustment and an adaptability to repetitions. So think about, like, we've all done, I mean, maybe not so much in the Air Force, but like push-ups, right? Push-ups. We start with reps, right? And some people have a good baseline for it. Others need to get those reps in. But as you get better, that's an iteration. And that's important to me. And that's what I'm constantly reflecting on, is like, okay, yeah, I got the reps in. I've done a couple laps. But what is my iterate? What's the version of that to meet myself where I'm at mentally, emotionally, physically, we talked about, and spiritually and socially? What does it mean to me? What's my version of that? And that's a challenging place to be. When you start with yourself and challenge yourself like that, it can feel like a lonely place to be. But I assure you, there's a lot of people out there experiencing that, and just kind of customizing your own version of your checklist of a toolbox, getting those reps in. Some we're going to get right. Like I keep saying this. All right, man, but in the Air Force world, it's been a while. It's been, but I don't know how many months. I'm not counting, but it's been 7-8 months since I last flew. But the last checklist version is like, there's version 8. To me, that's an iteration. It's like it started off, in the 60s when they started building up the checklist, and now it's up to version 8, depending on what checklist we're talking about here. And there's job guides, there's all sorts. It's pretty significant what we have access to and what we need to learn. I'm talking about like everything's in an iPad now, but when I went through in 2010, we still had floor
Old books.
pubs everywhere or paper pubs everywhere.
Oh yeah.
That takes
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of work. That takes a lot of work. And I don't know what the recipe is to do that for ourselves personally, but I think if we just acknowledge it and say, all right, I just know I want to create my own checklist, and and allow yourself to put the reps in with the focus of it, allowing yourself to be in an iteration and adapt and adjust accordingly.
Matt, I wanted to ask you. I'm very interested in your podcast, man, and um, I'm a big fan of veterans having podcasts. For one, personally, me, I feel it as a therapeutic outlet to connect with other folks, with listeners, with people. Even when I do a live stream and things like that, um, people tell me that I help them out. I feel like they help me out more than they think, than they understand. I want, please share your podcast name, and also, like, let me know why you started the podcast.
So the podcast is acknowledge to action. So just instead of the TO, I went with two, like acknowledge to action. And it sounds, uh, it is what it is. It's like you acknowledge and then you go through a sequence of events to take action. And it started off with my experience as a load master, as acknowledge, like, it starts with acknowledge and then you could proceed. So my iteration of acknowledge to action is acknowledge, accept, process, plan, action. Okay, that's not profound. That's not like something like, oh my gosh, like this is what we've been waiting for, world. It's a version. It's my version of what works for me. And like you, Vic, I did it because it's something I sensed that I needed to do. And I absolutely, with the guests I've had, the connections, the collaborations, I don't think they truly understand how much value I get from it, because there's something to it. And I'll say this, I'll get on a philosophical note here. When you start that with purpose and passion, that's what people sense that. People know that, and keeping it real here. The podcast world's getting saturated, and there's pros to that. It's kind, but when we're talking about life advice and we're talking about, it's awesome. But every day, but by the time we're done with this podcast, somebody may have started a new one with the same sort of version of that, and that's
I'm
good.
sure.
That tells you it's working. It's working, and so that's really, and like I said, I'll be honest. Some days I'm like, I remind myself it's about purpose and passion, Matt. It's not about metrics or likes or whatever. If this just gets to one person, this message gets to one veteran or one service member who's struggling or just needs some clarity, that to me is about. And there isn't a device that really captures that, in an intangible way. So,
Right.
so that's really it's for me in the least non-selfish way. It helps me be useful. Going back to what I said earlier, when we're useful to ourselves, we're
Absolutely.
useful to others, and
Yeah.
that's what worked for me. I like doing it, and it's just a way for me to stay connected, engaged, and really keep fuel. Give me motivation and fuel to keep going with that iteration process to make good better.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have that same mindset, the same mentality of, it fuels us and wants us to keep going and gives us a purpose, right, a passion. And you brought those two words up, and I know John and I talk a lot about it here on the podcast,
All the time.
purpose and passion. And I kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit, because you seem like a very passionate person, right? You love what you do. You can talk. You could talk for days on the C-130 stuff. You can teach me things that I've never even knew about the C-130 stuff, and that's cool, right? I'm very interested in all that. But the purpose and the passion, what do you think, or have you come up with that yet, or have you looked into that? What is your purpose and your passion today?
That honestly, keeping it real. I don't know why that's the theme of why I keep saying that, but like keeping it real, that's a very important question, Vic. And I think it's something we all, I'll say wrestle. I don't want to say struggle because maybe for some, but for me, it's something I wrestle with. And I go back and forth like, what is passion? Because some days I get caught up in the world of metrics, the world of social media, and like, oh, there's no value because I need to go viral, right? But then I remind myself, like, no, it's about going back to like, why am I doing this? Like, what is the value? What is the purpose? I love. Honestly, I didn't. The reason I use passion and purpose, I mean, that's awesome. As I get more into your podcast, and this is great. This is a great connection point. It just speaks to so many different aspects of our life. But I had a friend and a mentor say that to me just last week. It's like, man, I think he introduced passion and purpose to me. And I'm like, wow, I never really kind of thought about it like that. But I think it's constantly something we always have to be aware of and challenge ourselves with. And some days, going back to MEPS, passion could be fueled by dealing with a mental thought, right? Mental, what I mean by mental is like thoughts, emotions, feelings, right? Physical and all that
Right.
stuff. And I think when we acknowledge that and we focus on that, hey, what's working me today? What showed up at the door? And I believe passion, it's important to be aware of that and own it and lean into that and be aware of it and allow yourself to be like vulnerable, because then that passion becomes powerful. Then it becomes a purpose that is, I'll be dramatic here, that's unstoppable, that will just make you resilient and help you deal with the challenges ahead, whether they're forecasted challenges or unanticipated ones.
Oh, I love that, man. I love that you mentioned unstoppable, because I was just thinking about it this week. Um, I just kind of putting things pen on paper, 2026, where I want to be, what I want to do, the purpose and the passion behind all that, what drives all that. And I think you have to be a little bit, uh, there has to be a level of obsession there a little bit, when you find that one thing that you want to do. And that's the driving factor. Um, it just stood out to me when you mentioned unstoppable. I was like, okay, well, obsession. And I, kind of unrelated, but I just watched this movie called, gosh, it was Marty Supreme. It's in the theaters. This dude is, if you haven't watched it, it just came out. Excellent movie with Timothy Chalamet. And this dude is overly obsessed on what he wants to do. He wants to be a ping pong player. And that's his purpose, his passion. He believes in, he is not letting anything stand in his way. Just got to watch it. It's really good. And it gives it like a master class on obsession to be where you want to be through the ups and the downs, successes and failures. He was at the top of his game, bottom of his game, never lost sight of that stuff. Very good stuff. But I love what you said, man. Unstoppable. Awesome stuff.
Yeah, I find I'm really interested in that movie because that's so specific. Like ping pong, like what's going on in my head now is like, why ping pong? That's like out of curiosity, in a curiosity sense.
Yeah, that was just that was his thing. Table tennis was his thing. It's great. You got to watch the movie, man. I'm telling you, it's so good. My wife told me about it, and she's like, "Hey, I got us tickets there to go see this movie." I'm like, "Okay, a ping pong movie, really?" I mean, I played ping pong, right? I played in the past. I'm like, "Really?" But it was so well done, and like the you wouldn't think about it, like just thinking about, hey, a ping pong table, two people playing, but the emotion was there, the passion was there, the suspense was there. It was like all encompassing of all these emotions. It was so well done. I left there. I'm like, thank you for bringing me to this movie. It's honestly exactly what I wanted, where I wanted to be, what I wanted to see.
That's great. It is. Isn't it great when sometimes like those experiences have a way of just finding you unintentionally or by accident or chance, circumstance?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, um, Going back to the podcast, what kind of one of the aspects of it is I'm always curious what motivates somebody. Like, what prompted you to go through the motions to take action? Whether it's
Yeah.
join the military, pursue an education, start a business, I mean, volunteer service, just to really find your true, authentic self, fueled, hopefully, ideally through passion and purpose. And I'm intrigued by hearing people's stories. So whether they went off to be a Navy SEAL or a special operator, like that's a very nice shiny toy in the room as far as because it's real clear. People have a general sense of what it takes, right? And it's like what I like to find out is like, seriously, like how did you get dialed in like that? Like how whether it's or to become a physician. I mean, it could apply to all aspects of life, right? Um, and it's just incredible. I know, like I was still kind of to a certain extent, I was lost, a little bit lost in translation in high school. I just know I needed to do something when I joined the military because I'll say it. I'm good with this because I was scared. I didn't want to f up. I didn't want to screw up, and the military helped me kind of. It gave me structure and a path and the resources and the tools to not screw up. But then something started happening. A pivotal shift. It was a mindset shift. It's like, how can I be successful? How can I be better? And when you do that, I think that's what happens. And I'm not speaking for people across the board, but when that happens at a young age, to where you get dialed in, to where you do what you need to do to become a candidate for a military academy, or to position yourself to go on and hit the ground running as a 17, 18-year-old to any number. Whether it's a special operation level, it's pretty amazing to me. Like you're that dialed in, you're specific. That's a gift. That's a talent that you developed into a skill set. And I don't think there's a way to package that up or to summarize that up because it's so unique to our own experience. And you ask somebody that question, I don't know, just show up, did what I had to do, and the rest is history. I'm not making light of that, but it's like, no, there's more to it, man. Like there's layers. Let's hear it, and I going back to what you asked earlier a little bit, I think that's what passion and purpose is about, is just understanding internally what you had to do, understanding the access and the resources you had directly and indirectly that gave you the fuel to proceed to take action and achieve those amazing things and those goals you set for yourself, or what society deems like, hey, this is awesome, you crushed it.
Yeah, and I want to just kind of push back a little bit as far as like those super heavy duty milestones. Like I think, and this is just from me, from observation, from talking to a bunch of people in my own life as well, and my own personal experiences, is like when you're trying to find, because we talk about this a lot as well, is like when you come off of active duty, when you put the uniform up, like sometimes there's a gap in between your purpose, right? Meaning you had a purpose in the military, you had a mission, you had direct goals and opportunities that you were trying to go towards. And then once you hang up the uniform, sometimes you get caught in this like abyss or this little crevice in between, like coming off active duty and actually transitioning over to civilian life. And you kind of lose your purpose along the way for some people, not for everybody. Some people have it all figured out and they've got everything mapped out. And even in those cases, there's a lot of like, oh, I didn't consider these kind of setbacks, or oh, I didn't consider getting to that greener pasture and understanding that it was worse than I thought it was going to be, or whatever the case may be, right? As far as like the ultimate goals and the ultimate things that we achieve, I feel like it's really arbitrary, right? Like in the example that Vic was talking about in this movie about ping pong, like it's really arbitrary. Like unless you're from a family that has a vested interest in ping pong tournaments and ping pong championships, like what does that really mean to some people? And I don't feel like just because those things aren't really necessarily looked at as really great achievements in life, like if that's the thing that piques your interest and keeps you engaged for, you know, hours and days on end without rest, without anything needed to fuel you to do those things. Like, I feel like it could be arbitrarily anything, right? It could be basket weaving. It could be, you know, preparing the best set of cupcakes and in the world, making pizzas out of your home and selling them out of your home, like things like that. And it doesn't
Oh,
necessarily
no
always
more
have,
food talk, man. I haven't eaten breakfast yet. No more food talk, please. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I feel like,
right now.
yeah, no, I feel like it's like really arbitrary, the thing that you want to do. It's more like if you find the thing, and again, going back to what you say, being self-aware, acknowledging the things that are going on inside of you emotionally, mentally, physically, psychologically, biochemically, like those kind of things. If you can pay attention to those things and get more dialed into yourself, and then you can actually start to see these things light up as things that are more tuned to you for your purpose of what you need to be doing or what you should be doing with these things. And then you can like dive in and throw some effort at it and throw some resources at it, whether it's time or, you know, whatever the resources you may have to throw at it in order to get to that. I want to kind of dig in with a question as far as like, now that you've made that transition out, and I'm again, it's totally different because it's not active duty to straight civilian life. So you've kind of had that towing the line between the two. Is there anything else besides podcasting that, now that you've put the uniform away and now you've freed up some time resources, is there anything else outside of that you've looked at that maybe wouldn't be considered like this high profile kind of achievement to try to go after?
Yes, actually, I'm in the process of building up a wood shop. I'm very thankful for, I have the space in my garage to put like a bandsaw. It's always something I wanted to do and have access to in a convenient way. You know, bandsaw, planer, and all that. And I was fortunate. I was at a fair over the summer, and it was a craft vendor, and he was retiring, and he was selling all his stuff, and I had the means to go over and buy this from him. So like working with my hands, because one thing I have recognized and I'm fully aware of now is C-130, it's a very physical job. It's a very hands-on job. You're tying knots, you're rigging stuff, you're securing stuff, I mean, I could go down the list. And I didn't realize how much I valued and appreciated that. And what I learned by simultaneously being a very administrative heavy job, I didn't get that. But having the loadmaster job balanced that out. I didn't realize how much it was balancing me out until it came, I no longer had access to flying and doing all the cool, fun stuff you get to do in a C-130. What helped me is my experiences, or you want to call it awareness, whether it was the education that I pursued, some of the experiences I had as a readjustment counselor therapist, hearing people's versions of their transition and readjustment. I'm like, oh, okay. The time to plan for a rainy day is when the sun is shining. And I think I started doing that, or at least I tried. I made an attempt to do that. And being in the Guard, whether we're active duty in the Guard, it's important to do that, is to just kind of anticipate what you need to do and build that toolbox. Because whether it's a wood shop, a podcast, 3D printing, I got my son a 3D printer for Christmas and he loves it. He's 7, and so I'm looking at it in the distance here. So just like putting your passion and the purpose into a physical, tangible means is important. Writing does that. Like I've recently started. What I like about Substack is it allows you to go a little bit more in depth than LinkedIn. Rightfully so. Like LinkedIn is clear, concise. it's a networking thing, and it leads you to other access and resources. Where Substack allows you to take a more thorough, deep dive into what you want to write and how you want to do it. So between building up a wood shop, learning to make things. I just want to make things and for around the house, to put on the internet, to sell, just to add value, and all that. So that's one of the things. Writing and woodworking is absolutely and exercise, maintaining physical. I got a pretty big garage now, so I know how I am, and I'm like, all right, I want to invest in myself and exercising, working out, maintaining a good structured exercise. Because when I'm feeling off emotionally, mentally, the physical piece grounds me out. Whether it's woodworking or getting a good workout in with dumbbells and in the gym. So those two things: writing, woodworking, and physically exercising is my go-to. And probably will be for, I know it will be. It's going to be part of my core inventory for quite some time.
That's excellent, man. I appreciate that, because these are similar things that I enjoy doing as well, like building, doing stuff with my hands, and it really gets you engaged, especially when you mentioned like the 3D printer stuff, and I love like the design piece of it. So it's very cool that you brought your son. That you said your son, right? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, he already started. He already has the name of his business, Stop in 3D, and he's gonna sell stuff and buy the Nintendo Switch 2 that Santa didn't bring him get for Christmas.
Nice.
So I love that, man, because in many ways we're similar in that aspect, right? Like I got my kids a 3D printer as well, showing them how to do that, and that is also part of your purpose, I believe, is passing on these lessons learned to your son, right? These are he's seeing you as a person, like as a role model, right? You're showing him um, effectively how to do things, how to complete things, how to think outside the box with design, with 3D print, with woodworking, and all that. He's seeing all these things. So you pass on important lessons. He's known you as a military person. I don't know how old your son is, but potentially he's seen you as a military person. Same as, John's kids potentially have seen him, and mine definitely have remembered me most of their life as wearing the uniform. And then they look at me now, and it would be different. I think about this a lot. I actually got up this morning and started writing about it. It would be different if I just didn't do anything, and they would see that side of me, right? Same as like if you weren't doing anything and you just did not care about your physical fitness. You mentioned that that's one of your purposes, one of the things that you want to do, your physical fitness, your woodworking. If your kids saw you just being stagnant, that plays an important role in their mind, right? But they're not seeing that. They're seeing you do things, and I think that's huge. Being a father, I mean, this is kind of like transitioning over to like the fatherhood piece, right? Not just you, but your purpose is also being a father, showing your kid how to do things, think outside the box, work with their hands, better themselves, potentially build that Nintendo 3DS that they didn't get for Christmas, like you mentioned, right? So I love that you mentioned that. I love that that's where it's going. You're showing your kid, the next generation, how to do things, how to build purpose with their time, and not just sit there.
No, absolutely, and that's Vic. I appreciate you acknowledging that and picking up on that. And I'll give myself a plug here. I've on the tail end of my military career, I finished off as the Loadmaster Section Chief. So it was a shop of 30 Loadmasters, and most were your traditional C-130 Loadmasters, and others, 5 or 6 were the full-time staff, right? And I was in that role for approximately 3 years. The two things that really pushed me to be a section chief, a leader, whatever you want to call it, is access and accountability. And what I've learned, when I'll say the guys, when when you catch people making fun of you in a good way, there's value. Access an account what was it? Imitation is the best form of flattery, right? I'm not saying that to just say I was a section chief and I did all that, but that stuck with me was access and accountability. I saw whether you're in that leadership role or you're an instructor role or you're a mission ready loadmaster, colleague, list goes on and on. What access have you given somebody to hold them accountable in the best way possible? Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm trying. That's what I constantly do and dial myself and calibrate myself as a dad. I want to give my son, he's 7 years old, and I have a 3-year-old son as well. So, I mean, they're the Energizer boys. I mean,
they're all watching. They're all watching. Yep.
Yeah, they're all watching. And the same applies when I started getting experienced as a loadmaster, and we had a younger crop of young, they watch you directly and indirectly. Yeah, there's guidance, and you could say, well, the book says this. I was like, well, why did you do it that way? And I was like, you got a point. You got a point, and as I then became an evaluator, I'm like, I would say to instructors, like, hey, what example are you leading by? What access are you giving them by example? And the same applies as being a dad, like just giving them access to be their best. And because then when you do have to be a little more direct, authoritative, you could look at yourself and it's like, I did my best. I gave them access to do what's right. Now I can redirect them, going back to the military thing, I've learned to, unless it was an emergency situation or a blatant disregard for respect, you criticize in private, praise in public, criticize in private. And that goes a long way. And I apply that to me being a dad now too. I'm doing my best to tie all this in because it's service members across the board. There's a general sense, there's a strong identity piece, there's an attachment piece, rightfully so. And when we transition out of that and we don't have direct access to that, we try to find other ways to hang on to it in ways that may not be helpful. But if you take a step back and inventory, like, wait, I could apply this. What helped me be the best version of myself in the military can now help me be the best version of myself in this capacity, personally, professionally. And I miss the mark. I don't hit the target. Sometimes I'm way off the mark.
I think we all do, man. We all do. We all have our off days. I'm not always perfect, but it's a matter of reflecting and realize where you went wrong or maybe where you missed the mark, and then going back and just not doing that thing again. Just becoming 1% better every day, essentially.
I know that's so. This is such a motivating, encouraging conversation, and I joke. I'm like a runaway train. I keep going. I keep chugging along.
No, all good, dude. I mean, you're putting out some good info.
Yeah.
For me, for 2026, I wanted to be more of a, instead of having a to-do list, I wanted to have more of a to-be list, and I want to be more aligned and more focused. And speaking of targets and all that stuff, when we align ourselves and focus and work on our breath and all that stuff, targets come and go. Targets will always be there, whether we strategically put them there for practice or intentionally, or they come up through chance and circumstance. When we focus ourselves on being aligned and focused, you are ready for that target when it presents itself. You're dialed in, so you could get as close to bullseye as you possibly can. And I tie that back into the whole MEPS piece. What helps you align? John, going back to your question, and it's coming to me now. On my checklist is like, okay, align yourself, focus, and acknowledge what's going on right now, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, socially. That helps you realign yourself. So if that target is not clear, or you can't see the forest through the trees, when that opportunity presents itself, even if you've taken shots through the fog or through the mist, you're a little bit closer, or you could be spot on. You may not even know it because of the outside variables, the weather, the fog, the mist, all that stuff, right? So I like analogies, like metaphors, but that's my 2026 alignment and focus. What does it mean to me to be aligned and focused? And all right, I got to hit the wood shop. I got to get a workout in. I got to write. I got to connect. I got to be there in a supportive manner, in a more of a collaborative manner, support. Give people a shout out and comments on LinkedIn, on now Substack, whatever it means. Hopping onto your live stream and just connecting, just whether it's just for 10 minutes or it doesn't, and that's where I'm at with it.
Now, you come off to me as a very philosophical person. You like philosophy and potentially stoicism and all that, right? I'm curious what we're doing, like a reading list, right? I put out a reading list on my channel for 2026. Curious if you have anything like that, anything that you're looking to get into in 2026, or maybe something that you've read recently that you could recommend to John and I.
Oh, absolutely. Oh man, it's by my. Now, I'm gonna run real quick. I see it. Look,
Yeah. Go ahead, man. Do your thing.
Go get it, man.
I'm gonna show this book. It's called The Untethered Soul. It just came to. I'll be right
Go
back.
ahead.
I'll be like,
Yeah, do your thing.
That's why I love live streams. They're so awesome.
Yeah, they're good. You never know what's gonna happen.
So you never know. I love
good.
it. I love it. Journey beyond yourself. Okay.
All right.
Pulling
So
it up now.
I've been reading this, The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. Okay. I don't even know where to start in a good way, because it just speaks to me. It speaks like in a philosophical, stoic. It's a modern version of almost. I don't want to go as far as Marcus Aurelius, but it has those influences, and it just helps me. It helps me ground myself. This is in my checklist. Like, okay, stop and read. In this current state, it's The Untethered Soul.
Yep.
It helps me. I know. I'll in the comment section and whatnot. I'll to share on your website. I'll share some good quotes from it and how it's helped me. But prior to that, a book that kind of really helped me redirect my focus, that I to this day, I'm just like, wow, it was just amazing what it helped me address things. And that was The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. I hope I got that right, Michael Easter. Yeah, but it's definitely called The Comfort Crisis. And I thought it was just going to be this like in your face checklist operate. You need to get your life together and, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I'm like, okay,
Right, yeah.
Like, we've heard that in so many different, ways. I was like, I go wherever to get this, but it was combined with a good storyline. It was personalized just enough, but then there's a good objective message in it, and I reflect on a lot of that book. No, I don't have it on my bookshelf there. I think I let a family member. I passed it on to a family member, but yeah. Look, one more. I got one more for you.
Yep, absolutely. I'm putting the links for everything in the notes, and then maybe we'll add them to the description after the fact once I go back and put all the description and all the show notes and timestamps in there.
So you nailed it, Vic. Like
Stoicism
101. So I just, what's nice about this book, Stoicism 101, is you could pick up right where you left off. And I don't know if that's a metaphor message to military service or whatnot. Like, I know I have some incredible friends that I served with, some I haven't seen in years, but every time we pick up the phone, we pick up right where we left off.
Yep.
Mhm.
And that's important, and helpful for me. So whether it's in the form of a written literary source or through text message or through phone calls, allowing yourself to just be and allow yourself to have those resources is important. And it comes with these sort of conversations, shared resources. Some people are like, that still is not my thing, but it could lead them, when you open up that door for opportunity or for an idea or a resource, several more may present themselves, and that can be overwhelming. But you got to proceed. You got to figure out what door works for you, and it's important. And then we just, regardless of how many laps we got around, just because we get some laps in doesn't make them. I'm current on doing laps. Are you proficient at getting those laps in? So finding somebody who's like really proficient with figuring it out, being supportive, helpful, all that stuff, that's what's going to help give you the tools and the guidance and the fuel to proceed through those doors to help you figure it out.
And
That's.
have you ever thought about writing something on your own? Like, not just like, I understand you do the Substack stuff, but actually putting together all your stories, experiences, and publishing those things. You ever thought about doing that?
I would love to. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I have, and I want to share just my journey and my story in an objective way. And maybe we have so many inputs and influences, so it's hard to trace it back to one particular source, right? So, but going back to like books and the comfort crisis, I was like, I like this. We need to be good consumers to be good contributors. And I'm thank you for asking that question, Vic, because I'm constantly, I want to contribute. I want to contribute more because it's a mutual sort of benefit. It helps you as the individual, and it adds value. The more passion and purpose you put into it. Yeah. So all that to say is, I want to get my story out there as an Air National Guard member, and to just really detail more of the behind the scenes, but how I balance burnout and resilience. So like, hey, did I deal with some burnout? Yes. Did I focus on balance? Was there resilience? Yes. Yeah. Yes. All the above. And it was not a rinse and repeat, but it was a carousel of that, of doing that. So I do. I have kind of like started like an outline to keep myself. I have my own checklist. It's like, all right, how do I want to start? How do I make this flow well? And because right now it's more of a journaling, but if I could turn that into a resource, I would absolutely I'm passionate about that. Someday
I'd be willing to read it, man. You publish it, I'll read it, dude.
All right, well, thanks. No, it's important to challenge ourselves and set these goals and objectives, but with the realistic expectation. You don't have to get all of them. You don't have to do it all, but it leads to other things and all that. So that's kind of where I'm at with it all.
I mean, just to maybe expand a little bit broader, like let's get a primer for a chapter set up. If you are dealing with stuff in the military service or outside of service in your civilian career alongside of your military service, were there any like major setbacks that then turned into leading to a future success that you didn't ever imagine would happen because of the setback?
Yeah, I say yeah that quickly because I've been reflecting on it.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned
Anyone in
earlier,
particular?
well, in 2016, when I came back from that deployment and I resigned from my position I was a readjustment counseling therapist. I was on my way. I was very close to becoming a licensed professional counselor. And in that world, it takes a lot of hours. You need supervised hours, all that stuff. And I took the
Clinical
test
hours.
for it. And yeah, it was it's a couple thousand hours. Yeah, and I was like, when I stated where I was at and the challenges I had, they just let me go. And this is not to knock anybody or any organization. At the time it was business. Like, okay, that's what we're gonna do. Good luck with your life. And that stung a little bit because I'm like, but I know it's what I needed to do. Because I asked the position I was in, it was how do I want to say this? It was very involved. And mentally and emotionally, I couldn't provide. I could not provide. And I don't think that's burnout. It's just where I was at. I met myself where I was at. And at that time, they didn't have another outlet for me. It's like, okay, you could be a readjustment counselor in this capacity. It's like either you do it or you don't. And that's fine. I get that. I respect that. And that door closed. I left. I didn't have a full-time civilian job. I didn't have anything lined up. But I leaned more. What was great about actually what prompted the situation, military service, deployments, I leaned more into it. I think at that point I left for instructor school, which is about 45 days down at Little Rock Air Force Base, flying, all that stuff. And I really leaned into that, my career. So there's value in that. I was able to next level up my military career, give it my undivided attention. And then when that settled back down, I got into the world of administration. My good friend Justin, who served in the Marine Corps, we became friends through when I worked at the VA, and he was working as an administrator at a college. I say all that because he reached out to me. He knew the position I was in, and a position opened up, and he welcomed me. At the time, he was working at Villanova University, and I'm like, I'm not equipped for that, or I don't have that experience. And it was becoming a VA school certifying official. That led me into a career path where I am now. Like, if he didn't do that for me, I don't know where I'd be professional. I know I'd be okay in a different way, but it led me on this professional path that I did not foresee. I did not anticipate. I didn't expect. And so what I thought was, for lack of better terms, like, I don't want to be dramatic here, what I thought was professionally devastating in my civilian career helped me realign myself and focus what I needed to do to just really level up my military career, get that instructor rating, and just really lean into that and be the best version of myself, the best load master I could be. And then when that stabilized, the universe has a way of pointing things out and helping you your next step. Justin was like, hey, you got this. We got this opportunity for you. I think it'd be a good fit. And that allowed me to learn the administrative piece and become, an advisor and administrator, to where now I'm doing like compliance piece, standardization, and helping any facility in the state of Pennsylvania, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. If they're using GI Bill benefits, they go through the state approval agency office. So I get to do a little bit of administrative. I get to do site visits, and this could be not just your traditional college like Penn State, your community college, but any training facility, OJT facility, internships, apprenticeships, and OJT. Like I did a couple police when they come out of police academy, when they are hired by a respective police department, they're in an OJT status. If they have GI Bill benefits and they didn't use them for college, or they have something left over, that OJT benefit via the GI Bill supplements their OJT sort of apprenticeship pay as they go. That applies for firefighters. Well, anything that has like an apprenticeship, you got to
First responders.
and I really I like that, because in my mind, the GI Bill was just college. It was your traditional route. But what's been great, I say all that because in 2016, I had no idea when that door closed, or I got off that path, another one presented itself in a way that has helped me get to where I'm at, to just help me understand and really put value in an understanding of what balance is, post-military MEPS, what acknowledge, it just helped me formulate things and just be a better version of myself, and just manage life a little bit better,
Yeah. Yeah. So, Matt, I have a question here for, it's something of a reflection that I did for myself. Just kind of going over the year with my goals. And I know we all have goals. I know you talked about your purpose and passion and all that. So let's put the scenario out. Let's look ahead. Let's say it's December 2026. What did you accomplish?
What I accomplished was, I don't think I brought it up, but I've always, now that I'm at a point in my life where I could focus and give the energy it deserves and needs, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted what we'll call side hustle, whatnot. There's the different, but starting my own business on the side to see if it works. Just to, I'm not afraid of failure, but I'll be honest, I'm a little nervous for what success looks like in that capacity. So next year at this time, I want to be able to, hey, success, I want to be able to give Vic and John, I want to be able to give you guys a measure. Hey, this is what I can now define what success is. This is a metrics, a metric to assess that and hold myself accountable and hold the situation accountable. And that's, I have what I bought, it was like a photo booth business, fun, easy stuff on the side. I got about 10 events. I'll call it pro bono. I've yet to generate $1, but if you want to play, you got to pay, right? So I want to be able to next year at this time, like, hey, I've had X amount. I don't want to put a number out just yet. I had X amount of successful events that draw in revenue, that allowed me to pay off my photo booth machine. It helped the organization have fun, whether it's an employee recognition party, a wedding, parties, you name it. And just that's what I want to be able to say. I'm like, hey, it's going good. It fits in perfectly with my schedule of being a dad, being a husband, being, working full time at SAA, and having fun with it and allowing it to sustain with that, along with the wood shop, complemented by designing products and plaques and all that through wood shop, and then the laser engraver we have with my son coming in strong with his 3D printing. So
I'm curious why you didn't want to put a number to it yet.
You know what? I'll reference Stranger Things. I'll be vulnerable here because I'm a little nervous. I won't make that mark. I'm nervous of success. I am, and because it's uncharted territory for me. I feel like I'm stuck in the middle in regards to the entrepreneurship journey, to just adding to my portfolio of where I'm at in life. And honestly, I don't know what that number should even be, whether it's 100 customers, 2 events a month. I'm all over the place with that. I'm stuck in the middle with that, and
So what I
a bit nervous.
what I think the way I how I would approach that, and I completely understand what you mean. The success of something makes me nervous as well because I don't know what I would do if things got to the next level. If they became escalated. At least that's the way I used to think, and then things happened, things got to the next level, and then I kind of figured things out from there, just asking questions, seeing what other people did. But I think in your scenario, it would just be a matter of, how much did your machine cost? Like, I'm not asking you directly, like just
Yeah.
something to think about. How much did your machine cost? Divide that by, of course, the number of events or how much you charge per event. But I think putting a number on something
Mm.
like that, specifically, that's what I do to myself, right? Like, I may not always hit that mark, but I want to, like, if I had a photo booth business, and I know exactly what you're talking about, right? You go in there for the events, you put on the little silly glasses or the
Yeah.
hat, you take the photos and all that. I know exactly what you're talking about. Say, I don't know, say you charge $500 for that. Just put if I were you, I'd put a number on that. I would put it on a whiteboard or something like that in your room, in your office, and say, I'm going to hit this mark this year, or at least come as close to it as possible to hit that mark. The main thing is to put it somewhere where you can see it. I feel I don't know if that's how you work. That's how I work though. Putting something like a vision board or something like that. I have to be able to see the goal, the mark, and it's exactly what I use this whiteboard here next to me as. I want to do this in 2026, sponsorships or this many events, and then just kind of get out there and do it. Connect with wedding planners or wedding venues and festivals, events, local events. I have to assume that they have farmers markets in Pittsburgh where you are when it's not like 20 degrees outside. So yeah, it'd just be a matter of going out there. But I completely understand the fear of the success. Like getting to that next level. But it's an eye-opening experience once you get to that next level because then you start meeting new people, you start getting new networks, you start expanding, and you're like one photo business turns into two, turns into three, and you may need to get a warehouse at that point. So that is the success. That's where it all comes in. So um, with that, I will say visuals work for me. They may work for you, they may not. I don't know, but just putting it on the wall. I want to do 10 events this year. I think would help you out. Don't be afraid of the success. It's just a part of it, right? If you want to make money from it, from any side business, if you want any side business to grow, you have to be somewhat successful in some sort of way, be it Etsy, be it farmers markets or whatever. Don't be too scared of that stuff, man. It'll come. You'll make some money. It'll be good. Just put a visual out there for yourself, man.
I like that. I think that's why like successful organizations have their mission and value statements.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is a reminder. The Air Force Corvette: integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. Those are just words that to me when I
Mhm.
was 18. But when you see them and they're reinforced, it on the what? No, that's true. That's great advice. We have to have our own core values and our own mission statements and our own objectives
Sure.
in our uh, thing too. I think with that too is uh, I'm like I'm a little bit unsure. It's like, this is what I really want to do. It's because I understand. Going back to what everything we talked about, I understand pretty well what it takes energy wise to manage a military career and a civilian career. And yeah, no, I'm not managing a military structured career where there's clear resources in place. This entrepreneurship venture is like, wow, it's fun. The journey is awesome. How to get a LLC and getting a couple DBAs and learning everything you need to do. I'm like, but some days I'm like, is that what you really? Is it the photo booth business you really want to do? Am I spinning the wheel, or is this because I'm hesitant to proceed with that quality laser focused vision until there is undoubtedly passion and purpose behind that, and if you don't mind, going back, John, what you were saying, I tried this, when was it, like 2-3 years ago. I paid for a content course on how to build sheds in anticipation of retiring soon, set myself up. I knew then I would build my hands and I realized that just wasn't for me at the time, but the value of it opened up other doors for me. And I'm still assessing those doors and going through each door. So that door of building sheds and I want to call it Benko built, have a good standard. It opened up other doors and I knew I had to like close that. I was like, I wasn't ready for this because all that goes into it. So that's I think it speaks to me personally. I think that's we enter this territory of, wow, it's exciting, it's nerve-wracking, it's overwhelming, but having a checklist and having a means to grant yourself out is so important, and that's where I'm at. So Vic, with 2026, my goal, I could answer that question without hesitation. It's like, hey, I got, whether it's a photo booth thing, I had 20 events, it got in revenue. Not only did it pay off the current machine, but allowed me to invest in a the big iPhone looking like screen, right? Or it allowed, I actually transitioned to this business model and this entrepreneurship, and I am all in with it, and I have X amount of clients. All right, I got 20 clients who are committed to buying product and services from me in this capacity.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
And do you have a business name yet?
So so where I learned, so going back to the shed thing, it was Benko built. But when I transitioned away from that, and I had to let it go. I was like, all right, I'm gonna start an LLC. It's called Behold Legacy LLC, and then I have 2 DBAs underneath that. One is so Behold. I know that can be a fairly common word, but that's a combination of my name, Benko, and a combination of my wife's maiden name, Holdren. So Behold. So there's a little more
I like that.
New meaning, LLC. And then under that, we have Drop Zone Photo Booth, keeping the spirit of C-130 world. I have a parachute attached to a camera, and like, hey, and then Drop Zone, to me, Drop Zone has a really layered meaning.
Yeah,
but
it's a meaning.
You drop on in to the photo booth, Drop Zone. Come here, take a picture, take a selfie, have some fun, engage. I'm thinking like, in addition to like the fun part, but brand activation, corporate events, employee wellness. I've sat on plenty retirement ceremonies, promotion ceremonies, employee recognition. And just having that like as a tool, as a resource for that. So that's the 2 DBAs underneath that. The other one is Matica, combination of my name, Matthew, and my wife's name is Jessica. So Matica, that's kind of her thing with the laser engraving and the 3D printing. And she's done a lot of cool, fun stuff for Christmas recently. And we went to a birthday party yesterday to do that. So that's what we have established. So it's an access point. It's a means to build on and adapt and adjust from.
I don't know why I was thinking it, just seeing your name there and just kind of a play off of a Japanese type of lunchbox called bento box, but Benko box.
Yeah.
You name your thing, your photo booth, the Benko box. So just something that just popped in my mind. So gents, I got to take off out of here. I love the conversation and where it's going. I love the ideas. I just got to get into a quick appointment, but please continue on without me. And John, I will get a hold of you afterwards for some admin stuff, man.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.
Matt,
Vic,
great talking
thanks.
to you, buddy.
It was great meeting you. I appreciate this connection that we are establishing.
Absolutely, man. Reach out anytime, dude.
All right.
Great talking.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I just want to. I'm not going to hold you here hostage all day. I'm definitely going to be respectful of your time. These things usually go for an hour, 2 hours, but depends on how it goes. But I just have a couple little follow up things that I wanted to discuss real quick, and then we can go ahead and wrap if you're comfortable with that. You mentioned something about the taking the class for building sheds, and you said that there were some effects, some after effects of that you weren't really that you didn't intend to experience, and there were positive effects that you're carrying forward still now today after such a long amount of time since taking the class. And I just wanted to kind of highlight that and put a pin in it. Like I feel like that's something that people don't really take into consideration when they're judging like the pros and cons of doing something. Like if I do X, then Y and Z will happen, or if I do A, then B, C, and D will happen. But there's some other things that happen that you don't really take into account as positive benefits of that experience. And that for sure would be one of them. Like taking a class on whatever it happens to be, maybe getting a certificate from it, but then also gaining not only some maybe experience that you could translate to other different categories of work or of doing things, but also like the benefits of the networking part that you get if you're in an in-person class or even an online class where you get to interact with other people, just like you do if you go to some of these networking events online. Like you get to interact with other people, you get to do that in a classroom setting as well, or if you're taking a course or a certification or something like that, you get a lot of that built-in kind of added benefit from doing those kind of things. So I'm glad you pointed that out, and I just wanted to kind of highlight that real quick. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about, let's see what it was. Oh yeah. So I did want to leave you with a book recommendation. So it sounds like you read a little bit of philosophy stuff. You're definitely trying to navigate the business world and be an entrepreneur, trying to do things with your podcast as well, which for those who haven't checked it out, you should go check it out. Acknowledge to Action. The link is here in the chat somewhere. We'll also put it down in the description below as well. But one book that I did want to leave you with, and it's greatly impacted my life. I don't have businesses started, and I wouldn't consider myself an entrepreneur by any means, but this particular book is one that has definitely changed my mindset in a lot of ways. And it's a book that I continue to go back and reread every year, every 2 years. I go back and reread it just because it's such a great book. And it's called Anything You Want by Derek Sivers. I'll put that link in the chat as well. But if you get a chance, if you just go to sive.rs/a, you can find the book. You can also find everything about Derek Sivers. He's got a lot of great philosophical reads, but that one in particular is about his lessons, 40 lessons for entrepreneurs. And I think that'd be a really quick read and a really great way to kind of shift your mindset and maybe answer some questions or put things in perspective that you might be thinking about or might be considering as far as building businesses going forward, moving into entrepreneurship. So I just wanted to share that with you real quick.
No, thanks. It's so important to share these resources because it's just a tool we can put on our shelf and in our toolbox, and it's there for us to access. It goes to my two things: access and accountability. Like we need constant tools, techniques, resources to figure it out, to figure it out. And I like your point, John. Like we don't hear a lot about, I'd say, failures. Just off the top of my head, like I don't, like Thomas Edison with the light bulb. I don't.
Thousands of failures.
Yeah, thousands of failures, right? And I don't know. And again, and it's somewhere in between. Think of Stranger Things. I'm like in the upside down world. It feels like positive thinking to realistic thinking, or failure to success mindset stuff. And I I'm not ready to say like, oh, I'm all in with this photo booth business, but I am all in with wanting to be an entrepreneur. I am all in with figuring it out. And with the shed business attempt, there's so instead of saying failures, let's say intangibles. There's a lot of intangible lessons we learn from not being successful, or from not meeting an objective right from the start. Yeah, it was the Eisenhower quote. A plan is useless, but planning is everything. Something to that extent.
Yep.
And I think that speaks to, very rarely, anything complex, anything that's layered, the plan is always going to adapt. It's going to adjust. And if your plan is to be an entrepreneur, successful, and you have to have your metrics. For some people, it's a financial thing. It's a way of life. It could be customer based. It could be any number of things for metrics wise. But if your plan is that the planning then falls into place, then you could adjust, you could adapt to that. And that's where I'm at. That's what I mean by being like stuck in the middle, or, in a more, like I said, I'm stuck on Stranger Things in the upside down world. Like, yeah, I would love to be able to say, all right, I'm going to meet this goal or this objective, or even be able to define it.
Yeah.
And that's important. And when you connect with people and you connect with the resource, you got to have that more figured out. Sometimes we need resources to help us figure it out, and sometimes we need resources to fine tune the byproduct of figuring out or having those metrics. And where I'm at, post-military, whatever you want to call it, I found myself, I'm just not real sure. I don't have a definable sort of objective, and I'm okay with that. I may not have been okay with that a year ago. I could feel like, well, okay, then just be passive about it and don't do anything. It's like, no, acknowledge that and open up those other doors. Figure it out. Challenge yourself. Be uncomfortable. Be vulnerable. And I don't know. Diversify yourself in resources that you may not have been used to, with books, with different types of books, mindsets, to kind of shift and add value to what it is that you're trying to figure out.
Yeah. And it's also just understanding like what are all the upsides, and trying to minimize for the downsides. So, there's going to be setbacks. There's going to be different things that don't allow you to be successful, but there's also going to be a lot of upsides that you can look at. And if you can maximize the upsides and they outweigh the downsides, it's worth giving it a shot, right? It's not like you're going to go all in on something that for sure is going to collapse or fall apart, like understanding that realistically, but then also understanding like there's tertiary things that happen, like making new connections, meeting with people, gathering skills that continue and can be translated into other ventures, like those kind of. That's why I wanted to point specifically to what you had mentioned there about gaining skills out of that course that allow you to use those skills in future endeavors and future ventures that you were trying to do. So yeah, definitely.
That's great. You know what helped me too? I was just thinking about what you were saying, John. What you just said helped me think about what I'm about to say. Is it helped me identify to go to the source. And what I mean by that is, whatever state we're in, you go, how do I start an LLC? How do I start a DBA? Now, if you Google search that, you're going to get all sorts of stuff, pay for service stuff. But what I've learned, not only in my military experience, being a load master, being an air crew, what does the book say? What does the Vol 3 say? What does the Dash 1, the Dash 1, all the technical stuff that we'd reference? Okay, then from there, it's interpretation, or from there, it's a means to do what needs to be done. Well, I apply that same principle to what do I need to do to start an LLC in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? You know, wherever you're living, insert whatever state you're living in. Go to the .gov agency that signs off on that and do that, because you're gonna cut through the red tape. You're gonna bypass people who are third-party agents that may or may not have your best interest in mind. They're just that's what I learned. So I was like, oh, okay. That's what this shed building business course taught me, was how to go to the source, and then you do your craft afterwards, whatever it may be, provide that service. So just go, understanding what the source is and understanding the paths and ways to get there objectively, strategically, and with purpose.
Yeah. Excellent, man. Well, just to kind of put a bow on it, I want to give you a chance to let people know like where they can reach out to you online, where you would want to point them towards to get to your podcast, to get to a website, anything like that, any resources that you would want them to point directly back to you to get in contact with you, or to check out what you're doing on the Acknowledge to Action podcast.
I appreciate that, John. I'll just foot stomp the whole access and accountability thing again. So my primary access points are I'm as we connected as this is the byproduct and the intangibles, the connections. LinkedIn. I've been a member on LinkedIn since 2008 in a very passive way up until I'd say about the last 3 years. I took a more proactive approach. So LinkedIn, you could find me. I also, in the last month or two, I started on Substack. I knew Substack was always there. I just wasn't ready to manage another social media site.
Yeah,
But I like it because it allows me to write a little more in depth and share a lot of the things. In fact, a lot of what we talked about is incorporated in. I just wrote an article this morning, Sunday, January 4th, about the importance of planning and and where that falls into the acknowledge to action mindset. And then that last piece is just that acknowledge to action, the podcast. Last week I released episode 30. Mm-hmm. I on the average, I slow down a lot because of a major retiring from the military, moving out to the Pittsburgh from the Philadelphia area. I had to put some things on pause, but I'm breathing life back into that. So acknowledge to action.com and the website you have, because I have a pretty I'm looking to upgrade the website to get a more interactive, engaging website. So whether you Google search it or not, so there's some really good conversations there. So those three sources: LinkedIn, Substack, and then the website itself, Acknowledge to Action.
Excellent, man. Excellent. And for those of you watching, listening, standing by in the nosebleed seats or in the front row on the ice, you can catch us everywhere online. We are on YouTube streaming, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. We have a podcast set up. There is a slightly lagged version of the podcast on all the other platforms, Spotify, Apple, and everything else. So we kind of been going back and getting the backlog of the videos, because we're a video podcast first, and getting those pushed out to all the other places online. If you want to listen in your headphones while you're taking a long hike or doing some exercise or working in the garden or something like that in your headphones, you can definitely catch the episodes there as well, and they'll slowly catch up to where we're at here on the live streams. Other than that, you can catch Vic on the Green Logbook on YouTube. You can find us both, as well as almost 3,000 other folks who are military members who have potentially transitioned out of the military already, or those who are getting close to that point, on the military retirement Facebook group. Just go on Facebook and look for that. You'll find us a great community. no bots, no spam, no nonsense. A lot of really great folks in there. A lot of past guests that we've had on the show are in there as well. You can connect with them directly. Matt, if you want to get in touch with us and get in that group, would love to have you in that group as well. And for anybody else, we're here every Sunday for sure, and maybe even more when Vic and I, mostly Vic, does some extracurricular live streaming. So check us out. We're here. Thank you for all the support in 2025. Looking forward to a very fruitful 2026 with this show and expanding and getting better and building a bigger platform to share better information to everyone out there. Until next time, thank you, Matt, for being with us. It's been a pleasure. Really love connecting with you, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk.
Thanks, John. This is great as well. I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
No worries, man. Anytime. I appreciate you being on. Be sure to check out Matt on the Acknowledge to Action podcast, acknowledgetoaction.com. And until next time, be safe out there and have a safe 2026. See y'all again later.